Hi everyone, welcome to another Heroes and Bosses video. In this video I'm going to be painting the cloaks of my Skitarri Rangers of the Adeptus Mechanicus. These are all the pieces I've used to build these figures from the Kill Team box in case you're interested in knowing. I'm pinning and priming these miniatures and I'm leaving some of the pieces off to make it easier to paint and prime. I'm just going with a simple grey primer. In this case I used Mechanicus Standard Grey. Now I'm fairly new to Warhammer, so I'm going to go with the standard Martian Red for most of the units. The alphas and the special units like Tech Priests will have black cloaks instead. I'm starting off by painting the inside of the cloaks with German Grey by Vallejo. This is also going to cover up any spots missed by the spray primer. This video will be the second in a playlist that I'm doing called Building a Kill Team. I'll be painting two Tech Priests, an official one from GW as well as one from Wargame exclusive. I'll also be painting UR025 from Blackstone Fortress. Next I'm moving on to Mythiston Red. I'm base coating the entire outside of the cloak with this red. I'm also making sure to paint the hoods and the sleeves as well. Now I'm going to do some basic shadows and highlights. I know that Warhammer painters often appreciate extreme highlights, but I prefer something more subtle. So my brightest color on the left is Evil Sunz Scarlet, and then I've got two pools of Mephiston Red, and I'm mixing in some Abaddon Black to create my darkest color. This technique works best when you have lots of deep folds in a cloak, but I'm still going to use it to create the appearance of some shadows where the cloak bends inward. So first I'm just marking out where I want the shadows to be with the darkest red. After I get some paint in there, I'm switching to Mephiston Red and wet blending the two colors together on the edges of the shadow. Then just mostly brushing upward with the Mephiston Red away from the shadow. Then once again I'm marking out a few more places for shadows to go, though these won't be as dark since the area is mostly flat, but it is going to create more definition in the cloak. So you can see that I've got the shadow color on, and now I'm just wet blending the edges with some Mephiston Red. I'm going to apply some of this to the top of the folds as well for the next step. Next I'm getting some Evil Sunz Scarlet on my brush and applying it to the most raised parts of the cloak. I'll then wet blend the edges of that in with some more Mephiston Red. Rather than using a wash, I'm going to brush the dark red into the underside of the cables running alongside the waist. And I'm also going to use this on the underside of the hood and under the sleeves of the cloak. Once I'm happy with the shadow, I'm going to smooth the edges of these areas with some more Mephiston Red. Now I'm adding some Evil Sunz Scarlet to the top of the hood. Once all the paint is dried, I'm going to go back to brighten up or darken areas a bit more as necessary. Now I want to get some of the really deeply shadowed areas with a bit of wash. I'm mixing up a 1-to-1 mix of Carroburg Crimson and Nuln Oil, and it's okay to get a bit of water in this as well. I'm only applying this to a few small areas. So here you can see I'm applying some to the folds under the hood and then up under the cables going around the body. I'm also adding a small amount to a few other select areas on the cloak. After that's done, I'll just touch up any sloppy areas and then add a bit of highlight to the top of the folds on the back of the hood. And that's the red done. As you can see, he's a little more interesting to look at. Now, as I said earlier, this works better when the folds are more pronounced, like in this miniature. I use the exact same colors on this guy and the same method, but as you can see there are deeper folds which makes mapping the shadows easier, but that just means you need to get a little more creative with the Skitarri cloaks. The last thing I want to do with the cloaks is just to add some flair on the sides. I'm back to the German grey for this, and I'm using a cheap $1 flat tip brush. I'm just creating a typical pattern you might see on AdMech cloaks. First I'm making a fairly long stripe, followed by a shorter one. I'm not going to do this all the way around the cloak, just adding a few lines. And I'm doing the same thing on the other side just to keep everything symmetrical. Now I'm going to separate that pattern from the edge of the cloak by painting a red line along the edge here. And finally I'm just going to neaten up the edges of the pattern so everything is nice and square looking. And that's it for the cloaks until I add some water transfers, which I'll do after the entire miniature is painted. In the next video, I'll finish these guys off, and then after that, I'll be painting one of the tech priests. Thank you very much to all my patrons for supporting these videos, and thanks to you for watching.